Is Resident Evil the worst video game movie of all time? No, not by a long shot. There is a lot to be enjoyed here, and I'll be sure to talk about it later on. But that doesn't mean that this is the best movie to have ever existed either. Like many in the genre before it, Resident Evil has a long history of production issues that unfortunately played a part in holding it back, especially when talking about who would be the director. So with all that being said, let's take a look at how good old Paul W.S. Anderson got his hands on the project. I'm gonna need a few more beers. It only took a year after Resident Evil's debut into the gaming industry for film studios to notice that this is a project with a lot of potential. And in 1997, Constantine Film acquired the rights to shoot a feature-length adaptation from Capcom. Alan McElroy was hired on to write the screenplay, and at this point in pre-production, it was pretty close to the source material. In Starlog magazine issue 242, you can read McElroy talk about how he hoped to redefine haunted house movies, and that Resident Evil deals with a strategic team that has to go to a medical research facility where something has gone terribly wrong. One team was sent in and immediately killed, he continues, so a second team is put together, and this ragtag group of guys from all over the country don't realize that they're actually specimens in some sort of experiment. So I wouldn't say it's a word-for-word, scene-by-scene exact representation of the video games. I mean, it doesn't entirely depict the classic story of STARS members from Raccoon City investigating a disturbing series of cannibalistic events in the forests, but McElroy mentioned how these characters will more or less be used as an experiment by some unknown force, and you can see how it lines up with the original Umbrella and Wesker plot points. But hey, none of that even mattered, because apparently none of that was even good enough for Capcom or Constantine, and McElroy was fired not long after. Alright, so in 1998, Capcom released Resident Evil 2, a project produced by Shinji Mikami, a talented game designer who was inspired by none other than George Romero, who would later be hired on by Capcom to direct a commercial for the sequel, which then impressed those at Sony enough that they hired him on as McElroy's replacement as writer and director of the live-action movie. Now, despite Romero's dedication to the project, going as far as studying gameplay and story on a deeper level and including named characters, such as Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, Barry, Rebecca, and even Wesker into the screenplay, and allegedly ending the script in a faithful reimagining of the original game's finale, Romero was also kicked off the project when those in charge decided his writing just wasn't good enough, which is hilarious whenever you consider some of the crazy crap that we see in this film franchise later on down the road. Oh, what could have been. By the year 2000, it was finally announced that Paul W.S. Anderson would direct and write Resident Evil. And he was being very transparent early on that his film series would not include any tie-ins from the video games as, and I quote, "underperforming movie tie-ins are too common, and Resident Evil, of all games, deserve good celluloid representation." I don't know, man. I mean, it feels a little bit contradictory, but I'm sure he knows what he's doing.
Come on, man. Shit!
Well, anyway. Alright, so deep below the streets of Raccoon City, the Umbrella Corporation conducts insidious experiments in a facility known as The Hive. Recently, they've perfected what's called the T-Virus, and it's capable of bringing the dead back to life. Some bozo decides to steal it, we don't know who yet, and he makes sure to infect the entire facility before leaving. In response, the Red Queen, sort of an artificial intelligence defense mechanism, begins lockdown and murders everybody in an effort to stop the virus from reaching the surface. Hey look, it's sexy bathroom time! That's Alice, she has amnesia. Suddenly a bunch of armed Umbrella mercenaries show up. Oh, and this guy named Matt. He's pretending to be a police officer, but nobody believes him because he hasn't killed the black guy yet. Turns out the mercenaries were sent here to find out what happened to the Hive, and Alice is supposed to be the security guard living in the mansion above it with her fake husband Spencer. He's also a security guard who also has amnesia. They're in this weird pseudo-relationship so that the house acts as a cover-up as to what's going on down below it. It's a little weird, and maybe even nonsensical, I know. All of them go deep underground, and they end up in the Red Queen's chamber just outside of the actual Hive, where she murders a bunch of them with lasers, leaving behind Alice, Matt, Spence, Kaplan, Rain, and JD to finish the mission and figure out what the hell happened down here to make the Red Queen so damn homicidal. For those of you keeping track at home, that's 4 out of the initial 11 characters introduced dead. Those 4 having as much complexity and purpose as the next most pointless thing in your room. This pumpkin right here, it has more character than that medic who got her head chopped off. Kinda cute too. Turns out the Red Queen isn't particularly helpful.
You're all going to die down here. You're all going to die down here.
You know, kids always offer the most unconstructive criticism. So Kaplan disables her and all the quarantine measures that she had in place. This means all the employees turned zombies come out and dance to a Marilyn Manson concert. Rain gets bit, JD dies, Kaplan and Spence run off, Matt breaks free, and Alice's plot device starts kicking in. By which I mean her amnesia begins to wear off. Turns out Alice and Matt's sister, another Umbrella employee by the way, were working together to expose the company over their unethical experiments. Hashtag Umbrella is over party. Matt and Alice sort of form a connection out of this, or something, and it's revealed he is an environmental rights activist. I think. Anyway, everybody meets back up at the Red Queen's chamber where they realize they are going to die down here, just like the gypsy woman said. Because you see, they have a limited amount of time to escape the hive or else they'll be sealed down here forever. Or at least until the beginning of Apocalypse, I don't know, they probably don't plan these sequels out in advance. Alice gets mad and revives the Red Queen, who she convinces to help them escape through a series of tunnels and maintenance shafts. Oh, but a zombified JD tracks them down along with another horde of zombies and bites Rain. Darn, that's the second time. If she becomes a zombie, she'll have even less emotions than the default standoffish, but still kind of a badass. I'm so invested in her character. Who would have guessed that having the single personality trait of being a certified badass would be so darn compelling? Oh, by the way, in case you missed it, Kaplan gets sort of sad and runs away from the group. They're safe for now, but not out of the woods just yet. Thankfully, Alice remembers Umbrella was working on an antivirus which could be used to cure Rain. Oh no, if they do that, then there will be so many more droughts. Yeah, you can unsubscribe now. Oh, but she can't find it, because Spence was the one who stole it and the original virus all along. This subplot is ended quicker than it really had a chance to begin, though, because the Red Queen sends a liquor after him to stop him from reaching the surface or something. Yeah, he's dead. The Red Queen also tries getting Alice to kill the infected Rain under the promise that she'll help them escape if she does. But no worries, Kaplan unlocks the room after a fake-out death scene, and the Red Queen's system is fried. I guess that's the end of her. The group heads down to the train where Alice retrieves the antivirus and kills a reanimated Spence before escaping with the others. They shoot up Rain with the antivirus, a liquor attacks the train, Matt's hurt, Kaplan's eaten, and Rain dies from infection anyway. For real this time. The lone survivors kick the heck out of a liquor and finally make it up to the mansion where they plan on telling the world about the horrors Umbrella hasn't. Never mind. Turns out the liquor infected Matt with something and now random Umbrella scientists are coming in to abduct the two. Great timing. Matt's placed into the quote-unquote Nemesis program and Alice is put under for an undetermined amount of time, only to wake up and find out that the entirety of Raccoon City is now infected by the T-virus. And I have to admit, it's actually a really, really cool scene. So let's shift gears and talk about where I would rate Resident Evil on a scale from 1 to 10, starting with its most redeeming qualities. The movie catches a lot of flack for throwing the source material to the wayside in favor of Paul W.S. Anderson's original cast, lore, and, dare I even suggest it, themes, but I think it was a good decision when talking about this specific movie in his franchise. Characters like Jill, Chris, and Wesker could have been a lot of fun to have, but what if their characterizations had been altered so drastically that fans were left even more disappointed? I also wonder, would Paul have been capable of writing the duplicity of Wesker without the need of amnesia? What if Jill was changed from the hard-boiled yet caring detective that she was in the games into a character like Rain, the uber badass? So unmistakably cool that there's no room for other personality traits. She's a stone-cold, occasionally witty, zombie-killing machine. Dialogue, please. Character development? We don't need that. We have one-liners, baby. Oh wait, that's exactly what happened whenever Paul wrote Jill into Resident Evil Apocalypse, and it sucked. His choice to write new characters worked for me because I was able to walk into the movie unbiased and enjoy Alice, Matt, and Spence for who they were. On another note, despite making fun of it, I really enjoyed the atmosphere that Marilyn Manson's soundtrack gave us. Sure, it's not traditional Resident Evil in the sense that it embodies the distinct feeling of loneliness or helplessness, and I wouldn't say it's quite as timeless at all, really, as a track that you'd hear walking around the RPD at night when playing Resident Evil 2. But at the same time, it perfectly embodies who and what Umbrella is. A sinister, baleful company that's shrouded in a sense of dirty mystery, and so it really fleshes out this world that Anderson is presenting to us.
Well, whenever I write music for my own albums, I've always got some sort of image or scene, or I'm often kind of making a concept of a record to begin with. So it was always a dream of mine to be able to compose music to an image, because I don't feel you can have one without the other. So I wanted to take what I do in rock music and translate that into scoring without writing rock songs, and I wanted to try and make this very much unlike my music that I normally do with my band, but still make it exciting. There is a lot of heavy guitar elements to it, but there's also a lot of very melodic and very specific sound textures that try and enhance the scene. There were three elements that I noticed right off the bat from the film that I wanted to incorporate into everything I did. One was a bit of childishness related to Alice in Wonderland because of the Red Queen. One was a very extreme coldness and the biological feel, and the other one was a bit of a fascist military element with the commandos.
I did some research to see what other critics thought about this movie whenever it was released, and Roger Ebert, of all people, hated the set design, calling it toy-like and cheap, and I'm not disagreeing with his assessment, but I think it's important to note that while nothing looks realistic, the set design is cohesive and gives this movie an added layer of character and more memorable ideas of who Umbrella is, and I don't think it should be written off so quickly. The character of what Umbrella is as a company is so perfect in this movie, so absolutely wonderful, and so Resident Evil. Anyway, now that the good stuff's out of the way, I think that we should probably talk about the writing. I shouldn't have to elaborate on why amnesia is a lazy choice in this case, but I did want to bring up that it's a lazy choice in this case. Amnesia is a trope that nobody should ever use so plainly. Beyond that, there is a huge cast of characters who, by and large, have no character. The mercenary team only exists to jumpstart the plot and give some fun gore while offering no real reason to care about their demise or characters. Alice, Matt, and Spence were the only people I cared about, but even they're sort of one-dimensional at best. Alice's moral dilemma and the ambiguity of whether she would turn against Umbrella with Matt's sister, and also some of the more subtle show-don't-tell shots that sort of give the viewers clues as to what's happening with Alice, were some of the only highlights I could think of. The world building isn't quite that bad, and like I said, I can't get enough of Anderson's vision of what Resident Evil and the Hive was in this universe. There are moments in this movie that make a viewer wonder. For example, the laser scene. Why not just start off with the inescapable lasers? You've got a robot programmed to protect the quarantine of the Hive at all costs, and she plays around with her food like it's a game. Fun to watch, dumb as hell. Get the Red Queen a job at Aperture Science, and she'll make great friends with GLaDOS. The editing is annoying, it's loud, and it's quick, but only because it's trying to make up for a lack of actual effort in cinematography. So when you watch it, you realize that it's trying to trick the viewer into thinking more is happening when there actually isn't. It comes off as extremely cheap, most notably during the flashback scenes, but also the fight scenes didn't provide me with much enjoyment either. When it did go a little slower, such as when Alice woke up in the hospital and slowly made her way out only to find the entire city has been infected, I think it did well to further flesh out this atmosphere, but unfortunately, I think the movie was more focused on giving us action and quickness rather than thoughtful, slow, and steady tension. I just don't think that this was made to be a horror movie. As a whole, Resident Evil is stupid and it's shallow, but it's also something that I'll put on whenever I'm feeling nostalgic. It's fun background noise when you have friends over or when you feel like watching something that doesn't require a lot of thought. For those reasons, I'm giving it a 4 out of 10, an average of the scores that I gave the individual categories rounded down from a 4.25. So, returning to whether Resident Evil is the worst video game movie of all time, obviously it isn't. While the series may have devolved into something far worse, this might be one of the few examples of a video game movie done right. I don't think Paul was trying to make something that resembled high art. Shoot, I don't even think he was trying to make a one-to-one adaptation of the games. Rather, I think he just wanted to take a few concepts from the original series and make his own universe out of them. Like a really super expensive fanfic. There's nothing entirely wrong with that either. Some people might have expected me to tear into this movie for not giving the games quote-unquote good celluloid representation, and while it wasn't a faithful adaptation, I don't think I can knock off points on a rating system for that alone, because at the end of the day, it's entirely serviceable content. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, I really appreciate it. If you haven't already, subscribe for more reviews and video essays like this. This is my passion in life, and hopefully people can enjoy what I'm enjoying myself. You can follow me over on Twitter at twitter.com/writejsk. And if you have fingers, as people so often do, let me know what you think are the worst video game movies of all time and what you thought about Resident Evil. And as always, you guys, have a oh so lovely day. Bye.